Hello, everybody, and welcome to Behind the Camera. Here we are with episode 104 of Behind the Camera. And as always, before we get into today's show, if you would like to follow Behind the Camera across social media, you can find my link tree in the description, which will take you to Instagram, TikTok, X, YouTube, and also has the link to where you can buy my book, Behind the Camera, The Journey So Far. This is available in both paperback and ebook and is free to read if you have Kindle Unlimited. And if you also want to see more of the behind the scenes side of the podcast, you can also support the show on Patreon. For £3 a month, you'll get access to extra content, including a Patreon exclusive series, your name added to the wall of patrons at the end of every episode of Behind the Camera, and much more. But now, getting into today's conversation. Today, we welcome Laura Van Wormer to the show. 10 years after a major car accident sadly put an end to her career as an author, Laura's 50-year high school reunion changed everything. Serving as the inspiration for her podcast, The Class of 74, we talk the differences and similarities in high school culture between then and now, Laura's writing life before the accident, and the importance of revitalizing your passions when you feel all has been taken away from you. Get ready for a nostalgia trip, because now, here's the interview. Laura, welcome to Behind the Camera podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, Andy. I love being on. I just wish I was there in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it's getting to that time of year where it's starting to get like a lot nicer, starting to get a lot warmer. Everything's starting to feel a little bit better. Our clocks just went forward at the time of recording here, and yeah, it's getting to that early stage where it's starting to feel like summer again, and everybody's happy at that point.
That's so true. Well, I'm outside of New York City,
Mm-hmm.
Connecticut, and we had a cold snap that was beyond belief.
Yeah, I believe so.
And now the flowers came out, and then it snowed, and we haven't messed with the weather, have we?
No. Especially a bit of false hope there with the flowers, and then no, snow again.
Right.
Yes.
But our climate's very similar to yours. We're basically on the same seasons.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, Laura, you are a former novelist, but now a writer and podcaster, which is it's quite interesting. Hearing that you're a former novelist, because I don't feel like that is the most common thing in the world. So, but before we get into that exactly, let's go right back to the beginning. You know, let's talk about your background in writing, and you know, before we started recording, you mentioned broadcasting. So let's start from the beginning.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, you got a couple of days there, Andy. Well, I started writing when I was very little on the kitchen floor. My mother used to rip out a picture out of Life magazine, and she'd say, "Tell me a story about what's going on in this picture." She was from Texas, so she had a Southern accent. And so I would make up a story to fit the picture. So that was before I was writing. And then when I started writing, you know, with a big pencil, and I started writing stories, the same thing she did with me. Now, part of it was because I had no art talent. I had no musical talent, no piano, singing, ballet, nothing. I was striking out everywhere. And she wanted to see if maybe there was a writer in there. And indeed there was. And I always wrote stories. And high school, I was a real pain in the neck because we would go out and have maybe a keg party out in the woods or something. And I would stop everybody and say, "Okay, everybody quiet. You have to listen to me. I'm going to read you a story I've written." And everybody would go, "Oh, Laura." Right. So flashing forward, I went to college, and when I got out of college, I realized I had nothing to say as a novelist yet. So I thought, well, maybe I'll write for TV. And I studied that in school, but I ended up taking a job as the secretary to the editor-in-chief of Doubleday and Company in New York. And that was basically because Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis walked through the waiting room while I was waiting for my interview.
Wow.
And the receptionist said, "Oh, yes, Mrs. Onassis is an editor here." And I thought, well, that's cool. I want to work here then. Boy, what a career-minded person I was. That's really, Andy, that's how my whole career has gone. It's kind of like, well, one door opens, that looks good. So I started working at Doubleday, and then I thought, well, okay, I want to be an editor now. And I got promoted and worked my way up to editor. And I was doing a lot of entertainment books. Your audience, as I say, you're young, so you won't remember some of these shows, but Doubleday had contracted with the creators of a show called Dynasty, starring Joan Collins and John Forsythe and Linda Evans. And it was the #1 television show around the world. It was about this rich family in Colorado. To make a long story short, the book was late. There was a problem with it. And the editor of it said, "Laura, you know about television, don't you?" And I said, "Well, I guess." She said, "Look, we've sold this book to all these countries across Europe, and it's due in production in 6 weeks. And I just talked to the creators, and they said they've never even heard of this book. So I'm sending you to California to find a book in this show and bring it back so we can publish it in 6 weeks." Right? It's just like nuts. Well, I said, that sounds like fun. Okay, I'll go. So all of a sudden, there I am out at the old 20th Century Fox Studios. I'm sitting in Marilyn Monroe's trailer working. I mean, I don't even know what happened to me, Andy. It was that fast how this all happened. But Esther and Richard Shapiro, who had created Dynasty, it was a nighttime soap. Both of them had backgrounds in Victorian literature, the original soap operas, the page turners, like Charles Dickens publishing 3 novels at a time in the Cornhill magazine, and he published those 3 and then have a little cliffhanger ending so people would buy the next magazine and the next magazine. Now, this all comes to play with my podcast. That's why I'm bothering to explain all this. But that art of telling an ongoing story and having cliffhanger, endings and characters that people identify with is just a wonderful thing. And that was where Esther and Richard came from. I should say Esther was also the executive at ABC who signed up a miniseries called Roots.
Oh, yes, I know Roots, yeah.
That. And Doubleday was the publisher who published it. So I just have to give credit due to where credit's due along the way. But anyway, with this TV show, they didn't have any rights to anything except what they had created in the TV show, right? So the scripts and pictures taken on the set in costume, those were things that we could use to create a book. So I said, well, why don't we write a book about the characters like they're real people? We can do a big oversized book with these beautiful pictures of Joan Collins and everybody. And the Shapiros loved it because they didn't have to involve anybody else. They just had to send me to ABC to go through all these photo files. To make a long story short, I was going through 6 years of TV scripts, dictating every night, every fictional fact I could find in the script about the characters so that we could figure out where were the characters born? Where did they go to school? Who had a hard luck story? Who'd been married before? What happened to the ex-wife? All that stuff. And we wrote this book called Dynasty. And if you see that book today, you'll notice there's no author because I was an editor at the time.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't appropriate. But I brought the book back to New York and they published it all around the world. And so then I get home and that editor calls me and says, Laura, I just got a call from the Dallas people, J.R. Ewing, that soap opera. And they're jealous of the Dynasty book. And they want to know, do you want to do a book with Dallas? And I said, well, I'm an editor. I can't. And then she said, well, I hear rumors that you had started writing on your own again. And it was true. When I was in Los Angeles, I was writing for the first time, really, since college or high school. And I got the bug again. And I did want to write. It was all coming back. But now I had no way to support myself while I learned how to be a writer. So I got hired by Lorimar Productions to create a book for Dallas. So suddenly I'm at the MGM lot in Los Angeles. I know. I mean, my head just blows off when I think about it. My parents would say, where are you? And I'd say, oh, I'm there. Barbara Bel Geddes just went by.
Yeah, just in this little town on the West Coast here. Yeah.
Larry Agman's here and he's over there. And I don't know what's going on, but I'm doing a book out of these scripts. And I wrote a book called, Dallas, the complete Ewing family saga. And I went on a little tour with Cliff Barnes, the guy who played Cliff Barnes on it, to promote the book. And while I was doing that, the licensing people at Lorimar said, could you Dallasize a game? I said, what's that? And they said, well, we have a game, but we got to make it all about the TV show Dallas. And I'm like, all right, well, okay, let's try it.
Was this like a board game? Was it like, or?
It was a board game, yes. And of course, my family played it and said, Laura, there's no end to the game. You can't win it. Which is just like you. You just keep talking and the party goes on forever, but nobody's winning. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't know. Anyway, I'm writing my first draft of my first novel, and I gave it to people to read, and they told me that it was horrible, and I had no future as a novelist. So I was ready to, do myself in. And then the phone rings, and well, it's Knots Landing, another nighttime soap. Do you want to write a book with us? Well, okay. So I did that. And that's how I supported myself while I was learning how to write a novel. So my very first novel, which was called Riverside Drive, and it was published by Michael Joseph in England, and it's in print now with, I think it's a division of HarperCollins as well. Mm-hmm. But it has that serial flavor. Yeah. Meaning it was about 5 households who shared the same cleaning woman. And when something happened to her, the neighbors all met each other for the first time, and the neighborhood was never the same again, right? Coronation Street, right? Yeah. And I love the British serials. I'm such a huge fan of them. And that was interesting that it really was more Victorian, this novel, than anything else. And talk about beginner's luck. Danielle Steele was a month late delivering her book to the Literary Guild of America, which at that time was the largest book club in America. So they took my book as their main selection. So overnight, suddenly I'm like the biggest news, right? And it was all very exciting. And I said, okay, so I'm a writer. And that's what I continued to do for 12 more books. Mm-hmm. And I won't divert towards something else that I did, but I might come back when I might loop back to talk about it. But when I was was 2015.
Yep.
And do you guys have Golden Girls? Do you know who Betty White is?
Yeah. We that so there. I don't know if it's still here on like our
Right, but
terrestrial
it was.
television, but there was always a dedicated channel on like our TV here
Yeah,
that was it. All it was like
American.
kind of like like American 60s to 80s, maybe even 90s, like at a push TV. So you had like Golden Girls, MASH,
Yes,
Dallas, things like that. Like, and
yes,
it was
that's me.
like the channel was called Gold TV. That's
Oh,
what it was. And that I think it was like a UK channel, but it was just dedicated to like all of these kind of like
because they had
other
that
generational
demographic.
TV shows, yeah. So I think Golden Girls would have been on that as well, but I'd have heard of it anyway. But yeah, like we
Yeah,
had this in the UK, just this one dedicated channel
yes.
to like these particular shows.
Well, that's like podcasting now,
It
right?
is, yeah. Oh, 100%.
Find that audience, and people get attached to shows,
Mm-hmm.
I find. And when I was going to help Betty White, and I had the same literary agent at the time. And Betty was writing, she wrote several books.
Mm.
Most people don't know that. So I was going out to Los Angeles to help her on a new book, just to help her get started because our agent wasn't well. Something had gone on there. And I was on my way to the airport, and a drunk driver came through a tunnel the wrong
Oh,
way
no way.
and hit me head on. This is my ventilator voice. This is what we call it. I woke up like a month later.
Oh,
Um,
no.
and I have one vocal cord that kind of comes in and goes out because I was a big loudmouth, right? And Andy, I had a lot of brain, I just got,
Mm.
and I couldn't write. I mean, I tried, my publisher tried to help me, my editor, but that mental musculature that you need to hold a big story in your head,
Mm-hmm.
it was gone.
Oh.
And I got very sad. I mean, my poor family, they had to deal with this. There I am, larger than life, and then now I'm like this crabby old person. But this has a happy ending.
Good.
I went to my high school reunion, my 50th high school reunion, and I'm sitting there. Nobody can hear me, right? Because of my voice. It's so lousy. And when I came home, I was talking to my other half, and I was saying, I felt so sad because all I wanted to do was get up and say, stop everything, everybody. I'm going to read you a story I wrote, right? Just like the old days. And she said to me, why don't you write it as a podcast?
Okay.
And then they can hear you. And I thought, so don't try to write a whole big novel. Don't try to write a whole big, well, just write a story about high school. That'll be funny and fun. So I started writing an episode, and I had to learn all this equipment. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was so excited, Andy, because I hadn't written anything in 10 years.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to. And so I started, and I wrote it, and then I read it, taped it, edited it a little bit, because I do have problems. My voice gives out. And so I have to edit out all the the parts that aren't so attractive, right? Like right? And then I sent an email to my classmates, and they started listening. Now, mind you, this class, they all wrote me letters of farewell. Everybody thought I was going to die after this accident. So I have all this mail from all these kids telling me all their secrets about high school. So there were some people who said, uh-oh, Laura's going to write about high school in this thing. And I said, don't worry about it. Everybody has painful memories about looking back at school.
Oh, for sure.
We all had bullies. We all were insecure about the way we looked and talked and walked and all those sort of things. But it is fun to go back and visit, knowing you don't have to do it over again. And since I'm the writer, I get to beat the crap out of the bullies. So I'm writing these episodes, and my classmates are listening. Then all of a sudden, I'm looking, and I'm like, who's in France? Who's this in England? Who's in Scotland? Who's in Ireland? Who are these people that are listening? And what's happened, Andy, is that because this is a snapshot, it's a story about high school, the day that all the kids show up for the first day of high school in 1971. And what's going on in 1971? We've got some the troubles in Ireland were devastating at that period. And that makes an appearance in the podcast. All the real live events are happening. We had a prison uprising in America that was very famous called Attica. That happened the first week of school. We had the Vietnam War was still going on. President Nixon was in office, and he invented something called the Environmental Protection Agency. Because in those days, Republicans thought everybody should be guaranteed clean water and clean air to breathe. How that party has changed over the years. But what happened, Andy, it wasn't just my peers who remember those times. High school before cell phones existed, right? But we didn't even have answering machines then. No one knew where these kids were. You know, ask your grandparents, they'll tell you, no one knew where we were when we were kids. Because there was no film, there was no videotape. Nobody knew where their kids were. And so we were all drinking, we were all smoking. Ah, the good old days. So I've gone back to that, and I'm writing this serial about these kids in high school, day by day, what's going on. And people have fallen in love with it is a soap opera. Every episode at the end of the week has a cliffhanger ending. So then you have to tune in the next week. And Laura goes home and writes it all on her computer, and then I read it, and I'm doing this literally. You know, you were saying that you have shows that you prepare, 5-6 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I just finished a podcast yesterday afternoon and finished editing it, and it went up this morning. This is like writing a soap opera. And I want to say, when I was at Knott's Landing in Dallas, the tension on the set when a new episode had to go to bed, like, what's going to happen? What's the plot? Who knows what the plot is?
Oh, yeah. Like, the writing doesn't stop on those either. Like, soap operas, it's a 365-day a year, like, new episodes are, they're coming out more or less as they are, as they're ready. Like, there's no real, like, it's a well-oiled machine, like, with them.
Well, it's a real bonding experience.
Yeah, for sure.
I have this Patreon club thing that people subscribe to. It's really quite sweet. They pay me $5 a month, and then they come into a Zoom call once a week, and they talk about their high school days, and I just take notes. They pay me to give me material. But what's happened is we get to go and visit and talk about all the stuff we couldn't talk about in high school.
Oh, for sure.
We had Black liberation going on in the United States, and women's liberation was going on. There was nothing going on with gays. So anybody who was gay in our class was in the closet.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's starting to come into our storyline, because you couldn't even think it, right? On the positive side, our generation was the first one where the girls were told, you can go to college and you can be whatever you want to be, right? And men were told, it's okay to let your wives work. You can do it as a family. It really doesn't all have to be on you or all has to be on you. And God knows in those days, everything was on each other. But these new ideas were coming in, and going back and remembering what it was like. I've got all these history people who are listening because they feel like now they can live the history. This is why grandpa and grandpa are the way they are. That's why grandmother's such a liberal. Grandpa's not, because he grew up somewhere else, but she was exposed to a whole different environment. And why are we the way we are? And why are we so scared of social media and what we see happening to kids? Because we know what peer pressure is like. And if you want to come to the class of 74 and remember what it's like to feel the sting of being snubbed, of feeling unpopular or ugly or weird, you'll remember. And the nice part is when people turn off the podcast, they're so happy to be where they are in their lives today.
For sure. Oh my God, yeah.
It's a rush of gratitude, they all say. We made it through. We made it through, and the world has changed.
Yeah.
And some things we need to keep changing, but there's other things that we're losing. And it's that, I have to tell Andy, your listeners, that Andy and I were talking about how personal podcasting is. And you form relationships. This is a very lonely world.
Oh, yeah.
It's all smoke and mirrors. And with a podcast, you really get a sense of who your host is, of connecting, that they know what your reality is and what you're feeling like. And I wrote this podcast because I wanted to get out of where I was in my head.
Of course.
And it's taught me how to write fiction again. So am I a happy camper or what? Yeah. And guess what, Andy, all of a sudden, season 1, 25 episodes, I'm looking and I've got, whoa, what is this? I've got 1,300 pages of script. That's a novel. I've just reinvented what Dickens invented, right? That it's so exciting. So of course I'm going to publish it.
That's brilliant. That's amazing, because that's such a lovely full circle moment right there. Because going back 11 years when you physically couldn't write, and right up until you started the podcast, that you just couldn't. But
I had no confidence.
Yeah,
I completely lost my voice, my identity.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden you've got all of these notes, all of these episodes, and when you put that together, it's one of those it's like a happy accident, isn't it? You unintentionally have written, and so what I'm curious about, in terms,
I'm also connecting with people. I hadn't talked to anybody in 11 years.
Well, absolutely.
I was so depressed. I didn't want to see anybody because I did get physically rearranged too.
No,
and I'm older. Right?
So,
but all of a sudden now I'm socializing again.
That's good. Good.
My classmates know me probably for the first time. Years.
I know. I think that there's something about the whole high school dynamic that even over the last 50 years, I don't think has really changed on like a fundamental level. But it's just it's just the different aspects of it that are changed. Yes. Like, because I was in high school 20 years ago, and it was,
Where cell phone? Did you have cell
We
phones?
did. It was the very early days,
The
very
90s,
early. Like this. So when I was
right?
in high school, it was like in that sort of crossover stage from like older phones to smartphones. So like the first, I can't remember the year when everyone started to get iPhones and stuff like that, but I think I might have been around 14 or 15,
Wow,
maybe something like
wow.
that. So there was like a little bit of an overlap, and then people started to get smartphones and stuff, but like, and social media was in its very early days as well,
Oh,
you know, but I would almost go as far to say that high school in the early 2000s
mhm.
was more similar to it would have been in the 70s than it would be today, solely
Yes,
because of the
more innocent,
technological advances and sort of the impact of social media on kids. And now
innocent. The innocent.
high school kids always been evil,
Well,
regardless of what
right,
way you
they're
look at it,
always
right?
in trouble.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what generation. It's
No,
just
but they're getting worse now. They're getting,
yes, but
because of what they're
very
seeing on
close.
social media. They're getting worse. They're getting, and it's like it's crazy.
And that's exactly right. It is
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
And we need to slow down, everybody. And we've got young people how to come back and be human beings again.
exactly, 100%. I think
Right.
human connection has definitely been lost to a
Oh,
degree with that.
and this idea that you're to compare your insides with people's outsides
Oh yeah,
on social media.
yeah,
What are you all on drugs out there?
yeah.
It's not happening.
Oh, for
There's a person
sure.
inside there, and that's who you got to get to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious about something then.
Yeah,
So, in terms of you say like after your accident, you couldn't write, and this was like both a physical and mental thing. So whenever you started writing again, when you started writing the podcast, like, did
that
you
was
find
awesome.
it easier to sort of write the sort of short form, say like
Yeah,
30 minutes to an hour episode,
yeah,
especially because
yeah.
you're
No,
you're narrating the episode, so it really kind of goes on for as long as you're talking. Um,
well, in the beginning, they went on forever, but now I'm confining it to a half hour
half hour or so. Yeah, yeah,
so I can deliver it reliably every week.
yeah. And was keeping that down to half an hour, was that something that you kind of had to teach yourself with writing the
Yeah.
episodes, or was it a matter of just kind of going back to your old writing style where you were just writing and coming up with the plots and everything?
Well, it's interesting you should say that because people who are learning to write or trying to write and experimenting with it, so much of it is unconscious.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I agree.
And sometimes you need to step back and let the process just take it. That you'd be too nervous and too scared to try to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And so you just have to jump in and do it like your podcast, Andy.
Oh yeah.
You just have
Yeah.
to get started. But the short form, writing short stories is great. And mind you, I mean, I could write short stories. Why aren't I writing short stories? And I'm like, well, it's so lonely. You go back to sitting alone in a room again. That's no fun. Because I've created a monster. I like connecting with people now.
Yeah.
I love telling them a story. And they actually do like listening to it now. They don't yell at me to stop, but I'm not stopping their party. They can go ahead and party. But intuitively with time, when a story, all of a sudden I'll say, this is the end of it. This is the end right here. I thought I was going on to another event. I thought we were going
Yeah.
to go on and we're going to skip school and go to McDonald's for a cheeseburger, right? And get caught. But then I realized, no, coming out and this guy saying something to Cynthia that she realizes he likes her and she's never really even noticed him before. And that is a very important moment. So we
Yeah.
have to stop and come back next week, and tell me who doesn't identify with those wonderful moments when you realize that somebody was going to pick you to be on their team in gym, in physical education, right? Just once, I want to be the first kid picked. And you were, or
Oh
you
yeah.
weren't,
Yeah,
right?
those moments, like, I mean, and this is what I love about the concept of it, is because, like, you know, these things may seem like distant memories to most people, right? But
Yes,
what I think is important to remember is, if you put yourself back in those shoes from when you were in high school, when you were of that age more specifically,
yes.
and you sort of relive the emotions and the feelings of that time, those
Mm.
moments were such defining moments of life that, you may not think about regularly, but they'll always be in the back of your mind. And there's that sort of element of, like, young innocence involved, and, like, obviously those rare moments when you're of high school age, of course, but, it's like those, like, little
No, right.
defining moments.
But also when you look and everybody, we thought we were so grown up.
Oh God, yeah, 100%.
And we were
Like,
children still.
like, I'm one of my closest friends. Him and we've been friends for over 20 years, and it's so funny because, like, our friendship started with the threat of violence. Him on me, of course, and
Oh, not
like,
a
but
fire.
we've been best friends ever since. Like, now in our 30s, and we look back, and it's one of those things where when you spend so much time with, like, somebody who you went to school with, even
Yeah.
though it gets to the point you might only see them a handful of times a year, but it's still relatively consistent over 20 plus years. It's You don't notice the changes as much as you
Mm,
do in somebody who
no,
you haven't seen since the time. So, like, I know for a fact that if oh God, when did I leave school? 14 years ago. So if I bumped into somebody who I haven't seen in 14 years, I'd be like, God's gobsmacked at, like, how different they are. But I look at my best friend, who has changed equally, if not more. I like myself, and I'm like, I look and sometimes think, yeah, we're still the same.
we
but like,
used to,
but
because
we're not. You know what I mean?
and that you really did know each other when you were young people.
Yeah,
You really were. And the people that you were scared of, I find all of a sudden now you know what was going on.
for
They were more
sure,
scared than you were.
for sure.
I'm talking to these people who said, oh, well, so and so, his father beat the crap out of him every night. That
That's
was
it.
what was going on there,
Yeah.
or she had something going on at home that, but we didn't talk about those things in those days.
Oh no, for sure, for sure. And, like, that's interesting because, like, at around the time that I was in school, that was actually something that people were starting to become more aware of, but left alone.
Still,
Like, it was better left unspoken. So, like, I can't remember, like, even, like, when I was in, like, junior school compared to, like, high school, there were people who you knew were from bad backgrounds, but it was one of those things. It was, you were told once, and that was it. You just accepted that, and, not that you had to accept their behavior, but it kind of created that level of understanding, like, enough understanding to just realize why they were the way they were.
yeah,
Not to define them as such, but in a
right,
more, like, a more compassionate way, I suppose, like a
right,
more sympathetic way. And
right.
yeah, like, it's
Well, one of the nice things about our world today is that there's a lot more help than there used to be.
100% definitely.
And one of the hard stories that I'm getting to is like women and alcoholism, the
Hmm.
mothers, right? There was nowhere to send them. There was
No,
nowhere
no,
to send kids with a drug problem.
no.
And
Like, that's the
insurance,
thing. Like, I mean, up until up, I would say recently, like, maybe the last decade plus, like, those people with those problems, they were just kind of, they were there to see their time through, and that was them. That was them. That was the rest of their life. And, it's such a crying shame because, you see the people who come through those situations and really live up to their full potential. Like it's, it's kind of, that's why the help is there now, and it, should have been arguably for a
And
lot
it's
longer.
never too late.
Absolutely. 100%. Never too late. Never too late.
Um, I I hesitate as I say this, but I look at people that I grew up and all of us, and I don't drink anymore. I haven't had a drink in 40 years.
Oh, well.
Imagine. That's why I'm a writer, though. I kept drinking, there wouldn't be any writing. I wouldn't have the emotional energy to write.
No,
Right.
100%.
And what I'm just saying is, and it's not just drinking, it's anything. Bad relationships, you keep getting into the same situations. I don't care what age you are. Look around and see what makes you happy.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Go focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's kind of what these stories are about, these kids. We want them to notice their successes this time around, because I want people who listen to notice the successes in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
To put a little pep in your step. Because I'm telling you, we are getting older, and it's horrible, she says, Laura. But that accident, man, I'll tell you, afterwards, I just thought, well, what's the point?
No, of course they can.
Well, the point is we got lots left living.
That's it, and I think the inspiring thing to take from that is the fact that, it may have taken 10 years for you to get back into writing, but like that just shows that no matter what the circumstance, like, provided that, you are, of course, still physically able to do these things at a point,
right?
It's not too late, like, and that's
if you're receptive, right?
Yeah,
open
exactly.
yourself to possibilities.
For sure, for sure.
Let me tell you, I just shut down. Oh, I can't be like I used to be? Well, screw that. I'm not going to do anything.
No, absolutely. So when it came to writing the class of 74, were there have you taken elements from your own high school experience that, taken aside like the real life events happening, but is it a mixture of like your experiences and all the people in your Patreon groups, and like have you kind of like configured the story from that?
Well, it's like writing a novel that you create characters, and when you're far enough along, they get up and they walk away. They're their own person now. You can't change them, right? Although I have had a novel I wrote where the heroine ended up being the villain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. But what you do, the difficult stuff to find is what is right with people.
Yeah.
Why do some people rise to the occasion and can cope, while others just are clueless and fall apart? Well, there's hundreds of people who are clueless, but everybody has those parts to them that work exceedingly well. And that's what I copy from my classmates.
No.
From people I know, what it is I admire in them, because the faults are easy,
For sure.
Get drunk, pick up the car, blah, 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 blah. I want to know, why is this person able to get up, dust himself off, and offer a hand to the boy who just threatened to kill him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's you, by the way, Andy, if you didn't recognize that. The boy was going to beat you up, and then instead, what was it in both of you that responded to each other and grew something wonderful?
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's what's important. That's important.
Him and I ask each other that all the time. We're just like it just happened, we just got on the bus the next day. I was like, well, hello. Oh, yeah, okay. That went on for about 2 weeks, and then we started hanging out. Because as simple as that, but it's the funniest. It's like I look back like 20 years ago. It's like, that's hilarious. That's such a funny story, and yeah, we tell people that quite a lot, and it's just like kind of nobody really knows how to respond because it's so out there. But I think with what you're saying as well, like, finding like when people look back at their high school days, and I kind of think that, when you mentioned this in terms of like your writing, when you really kind of look for like the how people excelled in high school, because I think once you're so far removed from high school, everybody seems to look back at the worst parts of it. They look back at like their regrets, they look back at things they wish they'd have done differently. But you
That book
don't
is, oh, I wish I had. Yeah.
yeah, but you don't really get like this is what I loved about high school kind of thing. This is I felt like I excelled here. I felt like I was a good person in these sort of
And it,
circumstances.
and it really was funny.
Yeah, for
Some things
sure. It
really
was
were
like,
funny.
I
So
mean,
I'll write about the funny stuff. And there is serious stuff. We touch on it. You have to,
oh, you
because you
have
can't
to.
have
Yeah,
drama
yeah,
without serious stuff. But you have to trust me as the storyteller that I'm not going to hurt you. That I'm not going to
for
take
sure.
you and fall over the
Oh,
character.
yeah, yeah. Like,
Do something
yeah,
to him.
like you can create humor out of moments or people in moments, but it's less so about the person and more the circumstance, of course, and I think like, well, okay, let me ask you this then. So, like, how much do you focus on empathy when you're writing, especially with your audience, of like similarly aged people who kind of lived through these times as well? Like, do you think empathy is like a very important topic, especially because people are reminiscent now at these times when they are hearing your stories?
Yeah. I have a main character, Cynthia, who is a complex kid, but she has her friends and she has unlikely friends.
Mm-hmm.
Part of being in high school, right? You go in with your best friends, they're always been your best friends, they'll always be, and all of a sudden everybody starts changing in high
Oh
school, and she makes friends with people that normally she wouldn't,
yeah,
because he's weird or something, right? And I embrace that. Let's get to know the weird kid.
yeah, yeah,
Let's have some fun with the weird kid. Find out why he seems weird. And then you realize he's not weird at all.
100%.
He's just reacting like a normal kid to an unhealthy environment in another way.
Yeah,
But why can't we give him a girlfriend? Why not?
yeah. Oh God, yeah, 100%.
We make him a star on the soccer team, the football team. I've got a kid who, has come home from, he has just terrible acne, right? Just terrible at this kid. And, and Cynthia just says, oh, the poor, what, how do we, I don't, you know how you are in high school
Mm-hmm.
or everything. And I thought, well, let's make him a soccer star. Let's give him some friends who can help him with this problem, and have people start seeing past the superficial stuff.
Yeah. I like that, like really kind of breaking the stereotypes because like this, I mean, like this, the stereotypes exist, but like the unfortunate part of that is they exist for a reason because so much of it is like true to life. And I think
Yeah.
ultimately things like that, like, you get like the kind of weird kid, the nerdy kid, like, and I feel like I've definitely seen this happen. Like I definitely, during my time in school, I definitely seen this happen where people were shocked to see a different side of like the sort of the weird kids, I'd like to, for lack of a better term, where they shocked them with some form of talent that they had that nobody
Yes,
would have expected. So
we were
like,
all the artists. Yeah,
yeah, exactly,
we
exactly.
were
And
all
like, I
the
mean,
artists.
no one, I mean, who knows what they're doing with themselves today, but like, I mean, I kind of think back then it
Oh,
was kind of like, wow,
it,
like shocked. And I think it's kind of important. Like, it's another thing that I kind of like is the fact that the dynamics don't change, like we mentioned before, but like the same groups of people
mhm.
are still the same as well. Like, I mean, I know obviously, and the difference in the States and the UK, like, I mean, what would it be like in the States? Like jocks, nerds,
Oh,
cheerleaders, all
yeah,
kinds
right.
of things like that would be.
Love the cheerleaders and the right.
Yeah,
Uh,
like I mean, I don't really know how you'd categorize them here in the UK, but like if I was to put them into that category, I know exactly who I would be thinking of. And then you have like people who kind of float just in between. They have their core friend group, but they get along with everybody. They're not
but
really a
then,
threat to anybody, but then
right. But then,
sometimes to the wrong people, they fall victim to, what we call in what we call in Northern Ireland a bit of a slagging, which is like the butt of a few jokes kind of thing,
yeah, right.
and it's it just is like, but like even like back when I was in school, like there was, like I say, we're at the kind of birth of social media, but we were also of that time where if you didn't want to interact with somebody, you had
Mm.
more of a choice than what you do now, because
Oh, yeah.
people didn't harass you on social media. Like it would have just been maybe a rude comment, but you just, people just used the block button and got on with their lives. Like it was one of like, and that's testament to sort of how much worse I guess people can be, or the content they're consuming. I'm not really too sure, but
Oh, I think you got the right there. You just said it. The content they're digesting.
maybe yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of think, like with everything being short form, maybe more people need to get into podcasts, like long form podcasts,
Oh,
just to,
I
you
think
know
this is what God intended to solve some of the problems we've created in the world.
for sure. It's
The
interesting
people,
because I was sometime last year, I had somebody on the show, and they were saying that for podcasting, that's going to become some people's legacy. Like you're gonna get people. It's going to get to a point in time where so let's roll back the years. So like you might have, like, say you never met your grandparents or something, your great grandparents, but you like had like a tape recorder of like of their voice or something like that, or maybe like a old home video or something like that. For lack for sake of argument, but like, but now, you'd be looking at like a podcast or something. Like, if I ever have grandkids, this is sort of, that this is like my legacy for them. You know what I mean? That's like, if they wanted to see what I was like whenever I was in my 30s or younger or whatever, then it's like, yeah, go on to Spotify if it still exists.
that's the good part.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
the good
Like
side. It
it's
is a double-edged sword, the technology.
oh,
There
100%. Yeah.
are, I mean,
Yeah.
medically speaking, the advances and stuff, um, to communicate with people. Yeah, no, it's the flip side. It's
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think like
people you
the
live forever in a way.
definitely 100%. And, like, you mentioned before about like it, not like broaden the horizon, but more like a narrow kind of view of things. But like at the same time, like what I find with podcasting personally is that you find yourself speaking with like-minded people who you never thought that you would have in your entire life. And like, now, when I pitch for somebody to come onto my show, or you pitch to come onto somebody's show, whatever it may be, there's I really think that no matter what the pitch is, you're only getting a very, very small percentage of what that person is going to be like. Now, with
Right,
enough intuition, which
right,
genuinely isn't that much, you can get a good
right.
idea as to the rough, how it's gonna go, how this person is, as a guest or a host. But until you speak to somebody, you don't
Mhm.
really truly, you know, you don't really truly know them. Like, even if you have an hour long conversation, or if it is somebody from your high school who nobody talked to because they thought were weird, like it kind of, things like this, I think, kind of bring back that lost piece of human connection that sort of has been missing for probably the longest time. Like it's really kind of opens up people of all demographics to speak to absolutely anybody, because there's immediately that common ground that's an interest and not something that's mandated like school. The only thing people have in common in school, they go to that school. That's the only automatic thing.
Right.
But until you talk to someone, that's how you did it back then. You talk to people to get to know them, whereas it's easier this way because it's streamlined, because you know someone's into podcast and you know someone's into storytelling. It's like bang, there we go. We know this is gonna be fun.
Well, it is a different world. I really, it is a very lonely world, I think.
I do agree. You know, because like there are you know, when your work goes out into the world the way it does, you know, you have so many people who are consuming it, people who give you that kind of feedback. But at the end of the day, when you break it down, like, you know, like right now, you know, you're sitting where you're sitting by yourself. I'm sitting where I'm sitting by myself. And that's, you know, that's the reality of it. Like, it is just, you know, and there is an element of it that does take away like that real life kind of connection with people. But at the same time,
but Andy, tonight you're going to be skipping down the street. You're going to go in the pub and you're going to say, "Oh man,
oh no, for sure,
I've heard this babe."
Oh no, it's 9:30 at night now. I'm too old for that. 9:30 at night, and I've got work tomorrow. Plus, I don't know if I don't think my wife would be too happy if she heard me leaving at 9:30 at night just to go to the pub.
Oh my God! You have a wife who listens to you up there.
Oh yeah, no, she hears every episode.
Good for her.
No, you know what? It's nice.
It keeps you vital and interested, and
for sure. I appreciate it. Like, I appreciate the guaranteed listener of the week. You know, so shout out to my wife.
I hear you.
So obviously, like, you know, you have the class of 1974. That's going to be set between 71 and 74, the high school life at that time. Do you feel that there is like scope to do more seasons of that, like after you finish going up to 74, like 78, 82, etc.?
Did an entire season, and we got through 1 week of school.
So the one.
I do have to say, what's happened is that this has stirred a lot of interest in my particular class, the class of 74. And so there's going to be a new podcast, but a nonfiction one.
Interesting.
Where there's 4 of us. One's a scientist, one's an absent-minded professor, musician. Another one's sort of a socialite, but I don't even know how to describe Claire Bell. Well, she is kind of, she's constantly traveling, always doing something incredibly interesting, and myself. But we want to interview some of the people in our class.
Brilliant.
About what happened in high school and what were those pivotal moments in their life that changed things. I mean, we have some remarkable kids, and we didn't think they were remarkable at the time.
No, of course. And, you know, that's a really fascinating thing as well, because how many people that you see just, it looks like on the surface they coast through high school, that they don't change, and that, you know, there's nothing, you know, overtly kind of, you know, different about them. They're just keep to themselves a bit, you know. Yeah, but you don't know that they might have had like the, you know, the biggest personal change, but they just sort of got on with it. They just kind of their life in school was their life in school, and that was it. Like, I mean, and I think it is interesting to sort of like dig deep into what like people's really true story is in that regard, especially from, you know, especially when you know these people, or at least you think you know these people, you know.
It's fascinating, because more and more you realize that education is teaching kids how to learn what they need to learn when they need to learn it.
Yep. 100%.
You know, forget all the degrees. It's like, okay, Andy wants to do podcasting. Well, how's he going to learn it? He's got to know how to read the directions, and follow them, right?
Yeah.
And
You learn the basics, and then learn what you have to learn, and then like what you want to
And then
learn,
you
and
can
how it
learn
helps you learn.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and I think that's a great message.
Definitely. But Laura, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on Behind the Camera. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an amazing conversation. It's honestly felt like just reminiscing. That's how it's felt. And I really, really, really enjoy these types of conversations. So thank you so much.
Well, it'll be a pleasure.
So just for the interest of the listeners, where can we find you and the Class of 74? And of course, your previous works with your novels?
Oh, well, yeah, that's a long story. I'll be back on to talk about that someday. Well, Amazon is where there's lots of used copies of my books out there, so don't worry about that. But wherever you get your favorite music or podcasts, right? Spotify or Amazon or because I can't think of anything. iHeartRadio.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 100 of them.
Yeah.
I can't even. Anyway, it's the Class of 74. You just put that and you'll see this on your phone or what device you listen to. And YouTube. And yeah, just do Class of 74. I'm all over everywhere. And I have a website as a writer and also for the podcast at class74.com. And that's it. You're a very generous host.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And yes, for those listening, definitely make sure you check out the Class of 74 and of course Laura's other works as well. But once again, Laura, thank you so much for your time. It's been a lovely conversation, and yeah, take care.
Just a delight. Thank you.
Thank you. And there you have it for episode 104 of Behind the Camera. Massive thank you to Laura Van Wormer for being today's guest and sharing her story. Be sure to follow Laura's own show, link in the description. As always, thank you to all patrons for your support. You are all truly appreciated. And of course, if you would like to stay connected with Behind the Camera, check out my linktree in the description for all socials and my book, Behind the Camera, The Journey So Far, which is out now. Thank you for listening, for the support, and for being part of the journey. Until next time, take care, stay creative, and I'll see you soon. But until then, peace.